This month's Center Steer podcast is sponsored by Commonwealth Classics. Commonwealth Classics is a direct importer of classic vehicles from Europe and South America and has a rotating collection of rare and unique Land Rovers. Their showroom is located in Virginia, just 45 minutes west of Washington, D.C. Visit www.cwclassics.com to view their inventory of classic vehicles and follow them on Instagram at Commonwealth_Classics. Thank you, Commonwealth Classics, for your continued support of the podcast.
The Center Steer Podcast, a Land Rover podcast by Land Rover owners.
Welcome to the Center Steer Podcast, podcast number 102 for September 2021. Center Steer is a podcast by, for, and about Land Rover owners. I'm your host, John Kosich. Joining me over Zoom is Dixon from the great province of Ontario.
Good day. Good evening.
How you doing, Dixon?
Not too bad. It's not too cold up here yet.
No, I have friends up in Alaska, and it snowed this past week in Alaska.
Ouch. The leaves are just starting to turn here. The temperatures are in the high 60s.
Fahrenheit.
Yes. Oh, yes.
just to be clear, because there have been those temperatures approaching in centigrade.
I'm old enough to have grown up in Fahrenheit. I can do the conversion very quickly in my head, but I'm still very much an imperial person. Maybe that shows with the Series 1.
Maybe it does. What day is it that you are held back from crossing the border?
Oh, 540 something, I think. I'd have to check. I do know it's 389 days of working from home since the pandemic started. So add in a whole bunch of weekends and so on, and it's been a long time since that border has been open.
Indeed. Well, hopefully it gets open soon. There was some hope that you would get to come down for Mar and then here in early October, but I guess that's not going to happen.
Not this time, no. Maybe next year.
I hope. And then hopefully next year I can make it to the birthday party. I'd like to come back to that.
Well, actually, the next big achievable event I'm looking forward to is actually Winter Romp.
Well, Harold and Morgan are not able to be with us today. In particular, Morgan, we like to pass our condolences to Morgan because his pet dog, Cinnamon, is not with us anymore. So condolences to Morgan. Cinnamon came down for the Vintage Grand Prix a couple years ago and stayed with me. So good dog. Thanks for listening to the podcast. We partnered with Retro 80 for a 100th podcast design. The design is available in a sticker and a t-shirt, and stickers are available through the Center Steer website. The t-shirt pre-order, we've extended that. We're going to extend it to mid-October. I'll be completely candid with you. They didn't, pre-orders not as many as we'd anticipated. So I'm going to extend that through mid-October after Mar and give a chance for you to order a t-shirt. It helps to support the podcast and also support Retro 80 in the great work that they do. Patreon supporters, you do get a discount, and I did post that on the Patreon page for you. And I encourage you to stop the podcast now. Put in your order for a t-shirt. We'll be here when you get back. And be sure to check out the other Land Rover art that Retro 80 has available. He does some really, really nice stuff. If you haven't checked it out, just go check out Retro 80. He does a really nice job.
Oh, Retro 80's stuff is fantastic. It's great to put up on the wall or in your garage or whatever. It's very well done.
I think it's more than garage suitable. I think you can put it in your home.
Oh, it is.
A piece of art.
No negotiation required if it's in your garage.
Well, point taken, sir. Point taken. And thanks to Bill Burke for buying us some brown water. You can too by visiting Buy Me a Tea link on our website. And we had a great wide-ranging conversation with Al Richer. Although he says he's not done anything remarkable, he is an author, mechanic, and a Land Rover enthusiast for over 30 years. So Al Richer is our guest this month, but not before the news. And before we get to the news, this is your monthly reminder. We're going to start doing this monthly reminder countdown. In 2023, it is Land Rover's 75th anniversary, and you're all invited, all Land Rover owners, to the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix, July of 2023, especially Series and Defender owners. So you now have 21 months to get your truck ready. And hopefully the border will be open by then.
I hope so.
Because Dixon, you have to make it to that.
Oh, I know. That's again regretting missing the Mar this year.
All right, now for the news. We'll start with JD Power and Associates, and they do their annual initial quality and different reports. One of the key finding in general for the entire study was that infotainment remains the most problematic category. 1 in 4 of all problems cited by new vehicle owners are in the infotainment category, and 6 of the top 10 problems across the industry are infotainment related. And that is separate. The other findings were smartphone connection problems, mass market brands continue to outperform premium brands. Tesla is not included because for reasons you can read that if you want, but they're not included. But infotainment is, I guess, the big issue that people have. That's 1 in 4 of the problems. But let's look at Land Rover and where they sit in the JD Power and Associates 2021 U.S. Initial Quality Study. The industry average, and this is problems per 100 vehicles, is at 162. So there's 162 industry average problems per 100 vehicles. At the very best, the very top is Ram and Dodge, and they're at 128 and 139 respectively. At the very bottom, which is the worst, is Chrysler at 251. And I remind you, the industry average is 162. Audi's at 240. Volkswagen, 213. And Land Rover sits at 200. And they are actually tied with Acura. So Mercedes-Benz is 193. Then Acura and Land Rover at 200. And Alfa Romeo at 204. Jaguar is at 165, which is actually very close to the industry average on Jaguar. It's interesting that Jaguar is slightly better off than Land Rover.
162 to 165 is not very much. I'd love to see this table breaking the infotainment out of it to see the difference of how much of this is influenced by what marks on it.
You mean specific by manufacturer? Because if it's 1 in 4
by manufacturer, because I've heard a lot of iffy things about the infotainment system and so on with the JLR products, and where does that actually sit in terms of mechanical reliability and so on. I'm actually surprised that they don't have a lock hold down towards the bottom of this table. They're not too bad.
And I believe for 2020, Land Rover was dead last or close to dead last. So they've, made some, I wouldn't say great strides, but certainly better strides. They're closer to the industry average than they were last time, as I recall.
Yeah, because personally, I want mechanical reliability. Whether the infotainment system works or not really is not a concern of mine. Just put on the iPhone and use that if necessary. But I don't want it breaking down.
I think it's a lot of electronics now. So
yes.
It would be nice to have that breakdown, which I'm sure the manufacturers get that if they participate in this. They probably get all that level of detail.
Or subscribing to the service, yes.
All right, moving on. New York State here in the U.S. passes a law that will ban all gas-powered car sales by 2035. In 14 years' time, no fossil-fueled powered vehicles will be sold in New York State anymore. The state has passed a new law that bans the sale of gas vehicles starting in 2035, requiring all new cars to be zero emission. Of course, they're going to have to find a feasible way to make sure that even off-road vehicles and equipment sold in the state are emissions-free by 2035. And the law also requires all medium and heavy-duty vehicles sold in New York to be emission-free by 2045. So that's 10 years later. They make no reference in this article on Engadget whether that's diesel or not, but I'm going to assume that means diesel, but it doesn't say that. It's not clear what, gas versus diesel. It just says fossil fuel powered.
I don't know. The politicians have kicked this one so far down the line that it's meaningless. 2035, sure. Is it achievable sooner? Maybe. Is it achievable at all? Maybe not. But it's a long way away. And the marketplace is going to go and determine where a lot of this goes anyway.
That certainly is a valid point. And I think the push to all electric or non-internal combustion engines is certainly is a pace. I think these bans just give the companies cover in order to say, hey, we really need to invest in this and we need to go in this direction. And this is why we're turning in that direction. Not only do we have to do it because it's the right thing to do, but also because, well, there's regulatory reasons to do it. It gives them some cover. I understand what you're saying, but
why not just ratchet up the fleet fuel economy? every year.
Well, that would be a federal level thing here in the U.S.
Well, not necessarily. A lot of states follow California.
That's true. That's a valid point.
No, there's many ways to achieve it. And
sure.
I think your biggest challenge is whether or not the hydro grid is going to be able to go and charge all these cars overnight.
Well, and also have appropriate charging stations stationed throughout the country so you can get from place to place. Of course, the usual statement there is that most people are taking short trips, and it's, the less of an issue going cross country or longer trips. But, there's a number of things to work out, certainly, but at least we're now in that direction. It's better than 10 years ago. We weren't even talking about it.
Well, JLR is working down this road anyway, so they should be good with this.
And we have added New York State to our tracking ban here, the ICE ban list on our website. And 2035, I almost think I should retool this to be able to slice and dice, make an Excel pivot table, but I don't know if I want to go that far. But by country or by time or by manufacturer, California, New York, and Massachusetts are all doing bans of ICE engines in 2035. So is Seoul.
Okay.
General Motors last claimed they were going to do it. Canada is supposed to do car and light trucks in 2035 also.
I would expect we're going to be in lockstep with the United States.
Well, the only problem is that the U.S. as a country has no clear direction on that yet. JLR vehicles recalled due to seatbelt concerns. So about 37,000 vehicles from JLR are being recalled because they are equipped with faulty front passenger seatbelt retractors that could make it difficult for people to securely install a child car seat. The rear seat belts are not included in the recall, and it is not recommended to install a child seat in the front passenger seat. I actually think some places I think it's illegal. The vehicle breakdown, there's I'm not going to read all of them. You can check it out but it's basically 2020 and 2021 Jaguar and Land Rovers. There's 9,000 Jag sedans and 28,000 Land Rovers. And as I said, they're all 2020 or 2021. And that includes the Defender, Disco Sport, Range Rover, the Velar, the F-Type, the F-Pace, and the XF. So if you have one of those, you may want to check into that so that the seatbelt retractor works correctly in your front passenger seat. A Land Rover class action lawsuit filed over diesel filters. And this is also in the U.S. The Land Rover class action lawsuit includes all persons who purchased or leased a diesel engine powered 2017 through 2021 Land Rover, Range Rover, or other diesel engine powered Jaguar Land Rover vehicle equipped with a substantially similar DPF system within the United States. I had it. Oh, that is the diesel particulate filter. It could become clogged in stop-and-go traffic. A diesel vehicle with DPF allegedly has better emissions because the filter catches and stores soot particulates from the exhaust, but the particulates must be burned away through regeneration to keep the DPF clean. Regeneration occurs by driving long enough at highway speeds, but the Land Rover class action alleges this won't help with vehicles driven in stop-and-go traffic. So if you live in a city, for example, it's not going to work. So if you have 2017 Range Rover or other diesel-powered one, you may want to look into that.
Interesting. I would have thought that Land Rover had something in the computer that would rev the engine or do something to heat things up to go and burn that off, as other marques have done.
Then would probably affect your miles per gallon, and I suspect they probably didn't want to impact that. Just a guess.
If you're driving a modern JLR product, miles per gallon shouldn't be one of your concerns.
Well, you
even an old Land Rover, it comes up as an issue.
But as you mentioned earlier about the fleet averages on miles per gallon, I refer you back to that comment also. If you're doing that, that could affect the one of those regulations.
True.
Land Rover timing chain lawsuit settlement reached. A Land Rover timing chain lawsuit settlement has been reached between the automaker and the plaintiff who filed the class action lawsuit. The original timing chain lawsuit was filed in 2018 and included several JLR models, but the proposed settlement includes only 2012 through 2014 LR4 and Range Rover Sport vehicles. According to the class action suit, Land Rover timing chains, timing chain tensioners, tensioner levelers, and 5-liter direct injection engines can fail due to defects. According to the plaintiff, the pistons and valves hit each other, and the crankshafts and camshafts lose power, causing engine damage and engine failure. I like to just say the pistons and the valves hit each other. Yeah, that's actually very, very bad. So if you want the details there on your timing chain, they have a stepped extended warranty depending on the number of years, mileage, and warranty coverage percentage. All right, we'll move on to Land Rover Defender family to get all new luxury flagship. So Land Rover will soon crown its Defender range with the largest 130 model, but it's already investigating plans to turn the Defender nameplate into a model range in its own right, which we kind of knew that's this whole family idea. But under consideration is a luxurious version based on the Range Rover underpinnings, along with a pickup based on the standard model. But plans for a smaller version based on the Disco Sport have been axed. That's kind of like your headline into this. Sources say JLR bosses believe the Defender has the potential to become another high-profit business in the mold of Range Rover, with a lineup of distinctive Defender badge models and dealerships set to arrive by early 2025. If they prove successful, JLR's fortunes will be transformed, with at least 6 of its 9 future Land Rover nameplates generating high profit margins. JLR has increasingly focused on strengthening its 3 Land Rover model families, Defender, Range Rover, and Discovery, in recent years. Under the new plan, it would become a kind of supercharged Porsche, selling high-margin vehicles, JLR is targeting 10% margins, and generating enough cash to continue to invest in new models, as well as paying down its existing debts. An MLA-based Defender will inevitably be more of a luxury car than today's Slovakia-built model. It's expected to have a less rugged style interior, but distinguish itself from the forthcoming Range Rovers. The Defender already has a near 100,000-pound luxury range topper in the form of the new V8, but the larger, more sophisticated MLA underpinnings could open up the model to a wider audience, while allowing for a full electric version in the rival, the inbound Mercedes-Benz EQG. However, the Range Rover and Velar are likely to be initially prioritized as EVs on the MLA platform. JLR will need to balance the expansion of the Defender range against the Discovery line, which I think have been alluding to before, with sales of the 5th generation Disco seemingly directly affected by the launch of the Defender. In the first 6 months of 2021, Discovery retail sales slumped to below 10,000 units, making it the slowest selling Land Rover of all 7 nameplates. The next lowest was the Velar at nearly 22,000 units. Discovery sales were even down 17% for the first 6 months of the lockdown in 2020. An MLA Defender is likely to start at around £59,000 in today's money. Given that the plans to expand the Defender family are quite recent, the new luxury flagship version isn't expected to be in showrooms before late 2024 or maybe early 2025. Before that, the current Defender lineup will expand in 2022 with the launch of the 8-seat 130. Sources say the 130 will be 5.1 meters long and aimed largely at the crucial US and Chinese markets where demand for large SUVs remains high. It's expected to be available in high-end trim only, and showroom prices might start as high as £70,000. And at the other end of the lineup, Land Rover has been expected to use the recently announced EMA, that's the Electric Modular Architecture platform, for an entry-level Defender model in 2025, much like Ford has done in the US with the Bronco and Bronco Sport. However, these plans are now understood to have been scrapped. As previously reported by Autocar, this platform will be used for the next generation Evoque and Disco Sport, and it's with its flat floor enabling much more spacious interiors than the current models. So there's a quick overview of the Defender family.
If they can carry this off, good for them. The job of JLR is to generate profits. And if they generate profits with this, all the power to them.
Really got to get the chip situation in order. I think that's their big holdup.
Well, again, it goes back to the anecdotal 92 different computers in a Defender. You would hopefully want to reduce that quite a bit. But you're going to have vehicles that if they get out of cellular range for updates and things like that, they might not get you to where you're going. It's a concern.
Oh, absolutely. But you don't need to have cellular service for the vehicle to run. You might need it for software updates, but as long as those software updates are functioning fine, being out of cell range is doesn't have necessarily anything to do with.
We'll see where that goes in the future.
Putting all your money and time and attention in the new Defender was a smart thing to do. I think that's what they call a halo car, and it was the right thing to do. And it's the unfortunate though with the two-prong negative things happening of the COVID, and then coming out of COVID, you had this chip shortage, and Land Rover's trying to bring this new model that everyone wants, and it would sell like hotcakes and is selling like hotcakes, but now you've got a big backlog. And then they're also planning ahead, and they can do all this planning ahead to make it bigger, larger, smarter, whatever it is. But if you don't have the chips.
Oh, my understanding up here is that they're selling every one that they can get their hands on.
Seems to be the same here in the U.S.
Their problem or challenge seems to be revolving around the disco sport where it has collapsed. So they have to address that problem.
You mean the full-size disco?
The one that sold under 17,000.
Yeah, that's the full-size disco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not the sport.
Yes.
I think the sport's doing okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. No, it's keep them all. You got to keep them all straight in your head. We will talk about the full-size disco here in a minute. But before we do that, another V8. I like the headline here, so I'm mainly reading this for the headline. No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to drive the Land Rover Defender V8 Bond Edition. This is from Roadshow. To celebrate the role of its Defender 110 SUV in the film, Land Rover's SV Bespoke team has announced the blacked out Land Rover Defender V8 Bond Edition. The Bond Edition is inspired by the 110 example that appears in the film, which is currently slated to arrive in cinemas here in early October. Like the oft black tuxedo-clad 007, the Bond Edition matches deep black paint with the extended black pack exterior trim and 22-inch Luna gloss black wheels. Bright xenon blue front brake calipers provide a pop of color inspired by the eyes of Mr. Bond, James Bond, traditionally blue. Each example features a laser-etched plate in the cabin that reads SV Bespoke, 1 of 300, indicating just how limited the edition is. Defender 007 badges can be found on the rear door, gracing the illuminated door sills, and in the unique boot-up animation for Land Rover's Pivi Pro infotainment system. At night, the 007 stylized pistol logo can be found in the puddle lights illuminating the ground. Only 300 examples will be built by Land Rover SV Bespoke, all aimed at the intersection of Land Rover loyalists and diehard 007 fans. They'll, of course, need to also be well-heeled 007 fans. The Land Rover Defender V8 Bond Edition is priced and available to order starting at $115,950 American, but that does include the $1,300 destination charge.
I would like to see some pictures of the interior. It is not a bad looking vehicle.
Oh no, all blacked out looks really. It does look really good. I wonder if they did. I'm looking at there's some interior photos, but I don't recall seeing all deep. I don't think it's deep black. They basically the things we talked about, the special badging and the 007 on the sill plates. I don't know if is that the only one wasn't clear to me. Is that 300 around the world or 300 here in the US? I think it's 300 total.
I would expect it's going to be 300 total, and they're going to where they're going to sell, which is probably quite a few in the UK and the United States.
Next up, speaking of the disco, the 2021 Land Rover Discovery review, a little bit of everything. I'm not going to read the full review of this. This took place by CNET, but there's just a couple things to point out about it because we've been talking about the disco and it's out there and what's it doing. So I thought this was kind of relevant to this conversation. They like its peppy, mild hybrid drivetrain. They like the vastly improved infotainment system. They like it's a more capable than most SUVs. They don't like ponderous on the highway, and they do explain about that in the article. Like the steering wheel kind of floats. You have to make micro corrections, which seems appropriate for a Series 3. But not for a modern Discovery. And they don't like a limited cargo space with the third row seats up in seating position.
Okay.
I will read the end of this here. The kind of summation. The 2021 Land Rover Discovery R Dynamic S is priced at $63,250, including destination to start, which isn't bad for everything that comes standard. But if you want to keep the price as low as possible, a base disco sets you back $55,000 American. Once you start tacking on options, though, tester balloons to $72,000, which is a little hefty, and then there are plenty of competitors out there. There's also a call coming from inside the house. The Land Rover Defender looks cooler and is more capable off-road, but its less expensive variants don't feel as nice as a disco. That puts the 2021 Land Rover Discovery in a nice little sweet spot, riding the line between posh mall crawler and potent rock crawler. And a host of updates for 2021 make this the three-row SUV even more compelling.
Sounds rather nice.
It does. And you can read, if you are interested or thinking about one, it sounds like might be easier to get a full-size Disco than it is a Defender at this moment. You can certainly read about it. It seems like it does all the things that a Defender could do for the most part. Hold things, carry people. It tows the same. 8,200 pounds, I believe. One of the reasons I pulled this article up was, we talk about the Disco and it's out there, and where does it fit? I don't know that this helps. The article did say something that we've talked about, which is the Defender is out there and it seems to be taking sales away from the Disco. And I'm sure Land Rover is aware of that.
Oh, very much so.
So how does the Disco compare with its rivals? And this was another article I saw from Mrs. Hot Car. And I'll let you read this, listeners, but they went out. I'm going to read the end, but they compared it to, I'm trying to remember where they compared it with Audi Q7 and the Volvo XC90. Although I have one little quibble with them with this article, because under Who Rules Supreme in terms of performance, they have a picture of a LR4. Not the Disco 4, not the Disco 5, but anyway, it's minor. But at the end, their final thoughts, I think it's appropriate to read here. Seemingly, the BMW X5 has left behind its competitors by a mile. To add to the already existing gap amidst spec sheets, the Discovery's handling isn't as well thought out as the BMW X5, which I will pause the podcast to remind everybody that the BMW X series all comes from Land Rover, specifically the Range Rover, when BMW specifically bought Land Rover just for that activity, that knowledge. Back to the article. With a solid $5,000 difference in prices, the X5 is a better option for those who can afford it. But on the other hand, even Discovery never lets you forget that you're within an upscale SUV at the base price of $55,000. The Discovery also comes with a 360-degree camera to see blind spots covered by the car's hood to boost all-terrain drives. Overall, the Land Rover's Discovery might be an extremely reliable option for luxury vibes and great functionality, but if mileage is what you need, the Q7 is the best option. So there's a comparison with some of its competitors here.
Good article. If you've got that much money, you can go either way.
If you want a Land Rover, I think you're going to buy a Land Rover. And if you've probably already ruled out Audi or BMW or something like that. This is my guess. I could be wrong, of course. But if you're looking at like, I would like a Land Rover, and I can't get a new Defender because the shortage on chips in particular, maybe Disco is the way to go, because it's very similar. And if you want to know more about it, then these articles might help you to maybe make that determination, if that's the way you want to go. Mm-hmm. As I told Dixon in our pre-show prepping for this, the only reason I want to talk about this article is because the Autoblog used pictures of a D90 and it's all muddy. That's great. It looked great. This is the 2021 Land Rover Defender 90 off-road review. No time to dry. I'll read you some selected bits here. I was pleased to be offered the opportunity to take the short wheelbase two-door 90 out for a little fun in the dirt. As usual, my venue of choice was the Hollyoaks ORV Park, located about 20 miles north of downtown Detroit. Built on the now depleted section of an old sand and gravel plant, Hollyoaks has a little bit of everything, from natural elevation of change and dirt mud obstacles to carefully placed rock complexes designed to put off-road rigs to the test, be they stock or heavily modified. There are even some high-speed courses set up for those who prefer a little taste of the Baja over the slower pace of rock crawling. I started slow, as a proper off-roader should. The Defender 90 First Edition comes standard with all-terrain tires, I'll bet on 20-inch wheels, aired down for a little extra cushion. I set the D90's air suspension to its off-road height and started off with some traction tests. And then I'll let you, dear listener, go and check out the article to read about what the author there, what he encountered and did. But I think that was it. Yeah, that was it. So it was just a nice, he had a good time. And that sounds like that off-road park sounds pretty interesting from the way he described it, having some high-speed sections like in the Baja. And he actually did take he was able to take the Defender up to speed.
No, it sounds like a very interesting place to go. And the Defender seems to have acquitted itself fairly well.
Speaking of the Defender quitting itself, Land Rover's Trek Tour, where new Defenders and competitors are put through the ringer. And this was an article by a journalist. I'll read you some selected sections of this. So this is the Trek event that I think only takes place here in the US, where they take the staff from all the Land Rover dealers and they compete against each other. And the intent is to learn about the Land Rover, in this case, the Defender, and how it does off-road, so they can then take that information and knowledge back to selling Defenders when they go back to their dealerships. But I guess before they did that, they allowed some journalists to go on the trek. So I'll read you some bits from that. The journalists' wave tested out the course ahead of the retailer wave, which ends this weekend with 80 Land Rover retailer teams from across North America for the trek qualifying trials. At the end of the trials, which are designed to educate and challenge sales, service, and technical personnel, the top teams compete against each other for all of the glory. In the process, the teams come back to their dealerships with firsthand knowledge about exactly what you can do with the Defender 110P 300S. See, she described it way better than I did. And then she talks about doing the different challenges that they did. They teamed up with other journalists. I think there were 3 journalists per vehicle, and then they had a map and off they went. And so towards the end here, I'll read you that. Driving the Defender was the easiest part of Trek. The SUV and its 5-liter V8 are clearly designed to handle just about anything you throw its way, and I felt confident tackling all the terrain we encountered, knowing it can do more. Full disclosure, I have a 2000 Range Rover P38 body style at home that we've had for 20 years and more than 180,000 miles, and we've taken that vehicle all over the country. In the end, our team didn't win the competition, but we had an unforgettable experience. I learned a ton and can see how this event educates retail employees and gives them a firsthand opportunity to see what a Defender can do. From there, I'm sure they're selling them like crazy because I didn't want to leave without one myself.
From the sound of it, Trek is more like Camel Trophy, but done in a more comfortable and amiable environment rather than the Amazon, probably like in Biltmore or something in North Carolina.
I think you're right. I think it's a little less challenging, but it's still challenging enough. Yes, I would agree with that. And I think, isn't that what Lucky 8, didn't they help to kit out those vehicles and make the I guess the extra off-roading bits for the Trek, if I'm not mistaken?
My understanding is that they were involved in it. Yes.
I do see their name on the side of the vehicle, and that's the Goodyear Lucky 8, and of course Land Rover. You can't have a Land Rover vehicle without a Land Rover sticker on it 1,000 times. Isn't that always the case, right? So that's the Trek event. Now we've got like 4, 5, 6 stories here of older or kind of fun Land Rover stories. This is from Inside EVs, and this is Tug of War: Diesel Land Rover Defender versus Tesla powered Defender. Just to read a bit here for the first paragraph. What a concept. Kudos to CarWow for its latest video on YouTube. The publication takes a new diesel-powered Land Rover Defender and pits it against an older Land Rover Defender that's powered by a Tesla electric motor and battery pack. What's the best way to see if diesel-electric power prevails? An epic tug-of-war battle, of course. And it's about 9 minutes, I think. Kind of neat to watch. They take, as we mentioned here, they take a new Defender and an old Defender that's been Tesla power pack put into it. And the new Defender does a great job. It immediately pulls that older Defender with the Tesla power pack, and it pulls it no problem. And then they switch to another beefier Defender that has, I believe has a diesel in it. So I think it's diesel versus diesel, and also has better tires. So that one gets better grip, and then it pulls the new Defender. Yeah, basically it came down to weight and torque.
Weight is certainly going to have a major impact on this thing, because you look at the photo for the article, and that series vehicle looks rather light against
it was
the new Defender.
Yeah, I think it was like 2.5 ton versus 2 tons. So there was a noticeable difference in weight there. And then the other Defender they used that was gas powered or diesel powered, I believe, had beefier tires, and it was the same weight as the new Defender. So even with all the electronic capabilities, sheer torque won the day there.
Weight and torque wins all the time.
This was kind of cool. Some of these you may know about, some you don't. But this is a good summary. This is from CarBuzz. 8 legendary Land Rovers. There have been some amazing Land Rovers created. These are just some of them. And that is true. And I'll just skim some of this and read you some relevant stuff. The Camel Trophy 110 Defender. The harshest and most legendary event was the 876-mile Amazonian trek in 1989, won by British explorers Joe and Bob Ives in a 110. The pair negotiated the route from Alta Floresta to Manius, I'm not trying to say that, in the rainy season, where the previously dusty roads turned to soft clay. Quote, there were stretches where we put 2 anchored cars pulling another one and nothing happened. We had to dig for half an hour to try to get the car out of the hole, and 30 meters later, fall into another hole, unquote, explained team member Ricardo Simonson. So that's the first of the legendary Land Rovers. Number 2 is the 110 SVX Spectre Defender. The most spectacular so far are 10 built by Bowler in the UK for the 2015 movie Spectre, back to James Bond. They're crew cab Defender 110s, modified with massive 37-inch tires, heavy-duty roll cages, toughened suspensions, Bilstein rally dampeners, a hydraulic handbrake, and Recaro seats. Some, including the one below, were built specifically for the snow chase scene in the movie, and one was tuned for high-speed road chase. And then this is cool. Probably maybe in some ways, maybe the coolest of all, the Land Rover Series 2A Pink Panther. British SAS, Special Air Service, had a fine reputation as an elite force, and one piece of SAS history produced a legendary version of the 2A, of the 2 or 2A. Anyways, the Pink Panther.
2A.
From 1971 to 1976, the SAS fought in a guerrilla war in South Oman, and the perfect color for camouflage in the Middle East was gauged to be pink, particularly at dusk and dawn. These were kitted by Marshals of Cambridge with 4 fuel tanks, heavy-duty chassis, heavy-duty suspension, front and rear differential plates, sand tires, and a front-mounted spare tire. The roof, doors, and windscreen were removed, and spotlights were added. To survive in a war zone, the Land Rovers were also fitted with grenade holders and carried rifles, smoke canisters, general-purpose machine gun, and an anti-tank weapon. The small SAS group defeated the communist rebels in Oman, but only 20 of the 72 Pinkies survived the action. They're now the most sought-after Land Rovers in the world. And I did see one at Gaydon. They do have one at Gaydon. There's
a couple in the United States. 2 of them on the East Coast.
Sweet. Was there one at Mar years ago? Maybe.
Yep.
Maybe. I may have seen that one. But yeah, it'd be nice to get those back out again. Well, okay. If you, I have to make this request again. If you are an owner of one of the Pink Panthers in the United States, especially the East Coast, you know where it's going to be. July of 2023. It's going to be in Pittsburgh at the Pittsburgh French Grand Prix. We'd like to see it there. I think it'd be cool to have that one come out. It's a personal request. Bring it on out. Number 4, the legendary Land Rover list here, the Bowler Bulldog. It is the third in line of the Land Rover-based rally raid vehicles built on a custom chassis using modified Range Rover Sport subframes and specifically made Bilstein shocks. Each Bowler Bulldog is hand-built, ready for competition, complete with an integrated FIA-approved roll cage, and is also road legal. It's wider than a stock Defender, has more suspension travel, and comes with a tuned version of either the petrol or diesel V6 from the Range Rover Sport. These may look old, but they're the best competition Land Rover off-roaders out there. Yeah, they're bowlers. They're badass.
Wonder how they do with the new Paris Dakar that's takes place in the Middle East. How they would do in that.
The number 5, Cuthbertson tracked Land Rover. If you need a vehicle to go absolutely anywhere, it needs tracks. This one built in 1958 by conversion specialist James A. Cuthbertson Limited, which built conversions specifically for farmers forced to work in an uneven hostile landscape. However, the British Army bought some for landmine clearing as they're lighter than tanks. The Army didn't buy many, though, and it's believed the Cuthbertson built less than 20 in total. It has a top speed of 20 miles per hour, custom power steering unit. It has power steering and is designed to be converted quickly back to a wheeled vehicle. I think that custom power steering, it means it has power steering. I guess that's the custom part, the fact that it has it. It's a cool looking piece of machinery there.
The only time I've seen one, there was one at the Mar probably about 20 years ago.
Maybe I may have seen that one too. Now I have to go back and look at my pictures from that. Maybe I have seen that one. Number 6, the Flying Huntsman 6x6 pickup. The Flying Huntsman 6x6 pickup is a standout model. The bodywork is hand-formed with aluminum, and the donor Land Rover Defender 110 is extended by a further 34.6 inches for the extra axle. This is a 6-wheel, of course, 6x6. A rear roll bar is added and also gets bespoke interior. Completing the transformation is a 6.2-liter GM-supplied LS3 V8 engine making 430 horsepower. Number 7, the Land Rover Hot Rod. You've probably seen photos of this, and we have talked about it. This Land Rover is downright hated by purists, even though it's not actually a hacked up 48 Series 1. It was originally built by Brit car owner Steve Geier, who had a bunch of Land Rovers but wanted to build a hot rod. The chassis isn't from a Land Rover, but rather from a 1980 Rover P4 Series car, and as are the disc brakes. Under the hood is a 3.9-liter Rover V8, and in front is a grille from a 48 Series 1, as is the rear tub. And finally, this is the 8, what do they call this now? The 8 legendary Land Rovers, the last one here that they list. Again, this is just 8 of the ones that are all out there, so this is not the definitive list, mind you. Is the Transamerica Expedition Range Rovers. 2 1971 Range Rovers upgraded to transverse the 18,000 grueling miles of the Pan American Highway and taking the British Transamerica's expedition from Alaska's frozen frontier to the subtropical tip to Argentina. The trek was punishing, though, with 2 Range Rovers needed to cross the Darien Gap as part of the journey. And you may recall we had one of the Royal Engineers on the program talking about that from the book he wrote. About the Darien Gap, and where we learned that while yes, that the Range Rovers made it, they really needed they ended up getting a Series 3 that was nearby from Panama, I think, to kind of help scout the end of the journey, as I recall.
Yep, there were some series vehicles there helping with the Koenig winches.
So that was the 8 legendary ones, but there are more apparently, because just so happens I saw some other articles about really cool Land Rovers. And this is a 1972 Range Rover, quote unquote, shooting brake. It's rare and expensive. This is from Motor One. The vehicle from the gallery below is a bit more special, though. It is one of just 6 prototypes built by Land Rover as experimental prototypes designed and commissioned by the Special Projects Division. They were all built on a 25 centimeter, 10-inch, longer wheelbase, with the original plan being to make them more suitable for use as an ambulance. All 6 units were assembled by a company called Spencer Abbott in Birmingham. This particular example is even rare. It is one of 2 units made as a stepped ambulance and is actually the only right-hand drive example in existence. It was retained by Land Rover Special Projects as a demonstrator vehicle for a few years. In 1973, the SUV was sold to serve as an ambulance, and it remained in service for the next 44 years. Then in 2017, it was sold to a new owner, and about a year later, it underwent full restoration, conversion to a quote-unquote shooting brake, which we would call a station wagon here in the U.S. Since the restoration was completed, the vehicle has been sitting in a garage, and according to a new ad, its condition is, quote, near excellent, unquote. And it was up for auction at the Goodwood auction a couple weeks ago in September here. And it was supposed to fetch between 80,000 pounds and 120,000 pounds, which is $110,000 to $160,000. And looking at Bonham's auction, it did not sell.
It's interesting to look at. It almost looks like it's a very early inspiration for what became the Disco in the mid-90s.
Yes, because it has
the stepped roof.
That stepped roof, exactly. You know what's weird is, you notice in the rear there, they have the glass panel with the metal at the bottom. Why is there that little notch in the front? Like, why not just put the metal all the way across? What did the glass get you there?
I don't know, but I do like the tire on the bonnet.
Oh yeah, you're right. I never noticed that before. Oh, but yeah, that's cool. The tire on the bonnet. Oh, that's so cool. Why didn't it? Yeah, that's so it's a 3-door. It's the 3-door original Range Rover style that, you know, I guess we call the classic. And yeah, then behind the front doors is this extra stepped up roof, I guess, for the ambulance, so you could sit in there, or at least maybe sit a little better. You don't have to crouch over. And I thought weren't there some inside pictures that showed the rear of it, that since it had been restored, there was they had seating in the back for it. Yeah, there it is. That's the photos. Yeah, they had 6 seats, 3 facing each other in the back. So yeah, I'm shocked. No one picked it up. Cool. That should go to the museum, don't you think?
It should. Or Dunsfold.
Yes, absolutely. And next up in our just kind of cool Land Rovers, all of a sudden popped up a rare Royal Marines 1999 Land Rover Winter Water Wolves. So this Winter Water Wolf, that's what the name is, suits this Land Rover Defender perfectly. Built in 1999 for the Royal Marines, it was meant to withstand temperatures as low as -46 degrees. That's 51 degrees Fahrenheit and minus 51 degrees Fahrenheit, and make its way through 1.5 meters or 5 feet deep water. It had one job to do: make the trip from the shoreline to a landing craft at sea and back. It seems that less than 50 Wolves were ever made, and they're so rare that the Dunsfold Land Rover Heritage Collection doesn't have one. The original steel chassis on this particular model was refurbished, and the interior features most of the equipment that would have been present in the original vehicle, from a first aid kit to an MOD-issued torch flashlight. As a winter model, the Wolf also comes with under-seat heaters. The MOD stuck to the 300 TDI engine for the winter water Wolf because the new TD5 5-cylinder diesel engine that most Land Rovers had in by 99 wasn't compatible with the weighting character of this vehicle meant for amphibious operation. Other than that, the brakes, suspension, and steering were overhauled during the restoration process. This ultra-rare ex-Royal Marines vehicle was recently auctioned off for £35,000, $47,000 American.
I noticed in the photo it's green. Back in the just after 99, the British Army did some exercises and so on up in the Yukon and Northwest Territories, and they had some wolves there, but they're all painted in a white camo pattern. But if this is the winter wolf, winter water wolf, I would have thought that it'd be more white than green,
or maybe blue.
Or maybe blue, yes.
Yeah, so you would think with being the water. Yeah, I don't know. But it is, yeah, and we are saying that correctly, by the way. It's the Winter Water Wolf, WWW, Winter Water Wolf. I've heard of wolves and winterizing those, but this is the winter water one. And next in the more cool Land Rovers, Jason Momoa, who is Aquaman and other things, the actor, he has put a rooftop camper on his Defender. And there's a little bit to read here. The actor loves tinkering at his extensive motorcycle collection or updating his cars. His latest work includes getting a rooftop camper on his 110. For the project, Momoa partnered up with Red Tail Overland, which provides perfect solution for modern camping. So basically there's an RTT on his. Momoa loves everything that is vintage, and his bike collection includes Harley-Davidson motorcycles like the 1916 Model J, the 1936 Knucklehead, the 1956 Panhead, the 2020 Livewire, the 2021 Pan American, a chopper, and a Softail Slim bike, plus a custom Valkyrie Drifter electric motorbike. When it comes to cars, he seems to go for the same vintage big ones like the Land Rover Defender
Series 3.
I know. I saw that. I told myself when I read this I would skip the series part, but I didn't. Yeah, they made a little mistake here, but it says Land Rover Defender Series 3. It's probably just a Land Rover Defender. However, the actor is also proud owner of an Aston Martin DB5U, and ironically enough, of a pink Cadillac from 1955 that he adoringly calls Bernadette. So there's Jason Momoa, Land Rover guy. Had I known this, he was recently in Pittsburgh filming a movie. Oh, maybe that was last year now, but actually the movie's on Netflix now. It's actually was a half decent movie, not great. So if you want to see Pittsburgh in another movie, Jason Momoa was here. What's the name of that? Had I known, maybe I could have tracked down Jason to talk about Land Rovers.
Mm-hmm.
Just like we'll get other celebrities on, right? Because they want to talk to us about their Land Rovers. Actually, we do want to talk to celebrities about Land Rover ownership because, they're Land Rover owners. Why not?
That's right.
And next up, classic Land Rover Series 2A converted into luxury electric off-roader. Everready, that is the name of it, has built an all-electric version of legendary 2A, giving the off-roader a new lease on life. Debuting at the Concours d'Elegance, or as we would say in Pittsburgh, the Concours d'Elegance at Hampton Court Palaces. The electric Land Rover is powered by a 60 kilowatt-hour battery pack and an electric motor producing 150 horsepower, 221 pound-feet of torque. On a single charge, the electric Defender offers up to 125 miles of pure electric range. Before being transformed into an electric off-roader, the original 2A is stripped out, and the body and the chassis is meticulously restored, galvanized, coated in a protective zinc to prevent corrosion. With 2- and 4-wheel drive modes and high and low ranges for improved traction, the 2A has lost none of its renowned capability in its transition to an EV. Power steering and upgraded brakes help modernize the Defender 2A. See, they also made a mistake. It's not a Defender 2A. It's just a 2A, which ended production in 71 for the 21st century. I like how they say they upgraded. They upgraded it. No, it was given power steering. Yes. It didn't have power steering originally.
No.
Really cool. I mean, it did a nice job. It looks great. I like the wooden steering wheel. Of course, probably a lot of money spent on the interior, but the idea of electrifying your classic car is really appealing to me, and that's really cool. Sounds like the prices are coming down.
This one hangs a little low in the middle, if you under the driver's or passenger door. But actually, there's another electric vehicle Land Rover conversion company starting up on the other end of your state, north of Philadelphia.
Oh, is there? I was unaware.
Started by a former British Airways pilot.
I assume you know him or her?
I've met him, yes, and had a chat with him about it. Sounds interesting.
The reason it's low there, it looks low, but I think that's where it's under the seat there. Isn't that where the fuel tanks are anyways? So it doesn't seem
that low.
Yeah, okay. Maybe it is lower than I thought. You're right. I got a little closer view. And then finally, speaking of electrification, is solar-powered 4x4s find a big market in African savanna. So although the diesel-hungry Land Rover chugging noisily across the African savanna is a time-honored trope of the safari industry, it's an image steadily being replaced by eco-friendly, whisper-quiet vehicles powered by sunshine. It was an easy decision, says Cheetah Plains owner, the decision to offer an all-electric fleet of safari vehicles. They are silent, they are low on maintenance, and they are huge logistical benefits that we don't have to deliver fuel to the lodge out in the bush. But more than that, it's the right thing. We are guests in nature, so we have to leave a footprint. So why leave a footprint when we can be silent and blend in? I was quoting that owner. Today's electric safari vehicles are typically rebuilt Land Rovers or Toyota Land Cruisers, the diesel-driven industry standards. Private companies in South Africa and Kenya are responsible for making most conversions, replacing the engines, gearbox, combustion components with an electric motor, batteries, and control system. The extensive retrofit often allows for more whimsical upgrades. I don't know why they use the word whimsical here, but from built-in seat warmers to USB charge points. I don't understand why those are whimsical, but the process costs from $35,000 to $45,000 per vehicle, which actually doesn't seem all that expensive. I mean, it's money, but it's not like $100,000. Continuing on here, since we went electric in 2014, the vehicles have saved close on 50,000 liters of diesel, and boats have saved 50,000 liters of petrol, says Chobe marketing manager Andrew Flatt, who estimates that the lodge recouped its initial investment in 4 years. Capability isn't concerned. Electrical components in modified safari vehicles are surprisingly rugged. Sealed engines allow guides to ford rivers and wade through deep sand just as they could with a traditional combustion-driven vehicle. In the beginning, I was worried about torque, says Cheetah Plains company. You wonder if you're going to get stuck in mud or deep sands, but after 3 years, we've never had a problem. Yeah, we've been using these to tow stuck diesel vehicles out of the water, she laughs. So there's the African savanna becoming electrified.
Sounds rather interesting and relatively affordable. Though I wonder how many square feet of solar panels you need to go and have one of these things charged for tomorrow. And is that included in the $35,000, $45,000 conversion cost?
Yeah, that wasn't mentioned in the article. They did talk about how solar panels are able to get into the point where they could charge a vehicle, but that's all they said. They didn't say anything more about, how many watts or kilowatts or anything. That's an excellent question. Although I would think a Defender putting on, with a virtually flat roof that you could put on the top, you could put a bunch of good solar panels up there, and that would be like ideal.
Mm-hmm.
But and then the other thing they mentioned was it's relatively quiet, so you don't have the clattering of the diesel. They could get closer to animals, then they could hear animals as they're driving that you normally couldn't hear, hyenas, for example. And there was another animal I'd never heard of actually before, but they said they normally don't hear that animal, but because with the quiet electric motor, they could hear it as they even drove by. It sounds like the future.
I think it is.
And that's the news for September 2021. And now on the Center Steer podcast, contacting us from Massachusetts, United States, is Al Richer. Al Richer is an author, mechanic, and a 30-year-plus Rover enthusiast. Welcome to the show, Al. Happy to have you.
Good evening, John. I'm very, very happy to be here. To be honest, I was very much questioning why you guys would be interested in me, more because while I am a Rover enthusiast and such, I've never done anything, shall we say, dramatic or of the level of the Oxford expedition or anything like that. So this was an interesting invitation, to say the least.
Well, neither have I. And I just put on this little podcast about Land Rovers and talk to enthusiasts. So you fit into that. You've been in the game. You've been in as an enthusiast for a long time, and you've been around for a while. You've written articles for OVLR. You fit into the mold of longtime Land Rover enthusiast and holding the flag for the brand, especially here in North America when all others had left the brand.
True enough. Thank you.
And joining us is your friend Dixon.
Greetings from the background.
Oh, yes, he's lurking in the corner somewhere.
He's in a sky creeper.
That's right.
Thanks to Dixon is how we were able to make the contact to get you on the program.
Mm-hmm.
Al, what was your first Land Rover experience? How'd you get into Land Rovers?
Oh, there's a story behind that.
Good. I have a podcast just for you to tell that story.
Back in mid-1994, I was hospitalized for a very serious illness. I don't remember what it exactly was. I believe it was a kidney stone. And lying there in the hospital, staring at the ceiling, I started thinking about all of the things that I had not done that I really wanted to do. This was long before the term bucket list ever came up. And one of the things I thought about that I had not done was I always wanted to own a Land Rover. Having grown up with Elsa the Lion and Joy Adamson and her husband and Daktari and all of these other, if you'll pardon the expression, stereotypes, I had always wanted one, even though, to be honest, I'd never even sat in one. Fast forward, 9 months to a year, and I dragged home the most, to be perfectly honest, disgusting, reprehensible mistake of a Land Rover that it was possible to purchase for far too much money. It was a 1964 Land Rover 109 pickup, now fabled in song and story as Mr. Churchill. I dragged it home, drove it home from northern Maine at 45 miles an hour on the Maine Turnpike, trailing a cloud of diesel smoke from the heating oil it was running on in the gas tank.
What time of year is this?
Midsummer, thankfully.
Okay, say as if it was February.
Oh no, I may be mad, but I'm not that insane. And I drove it home and parked it up. Went out, looked at it the next day, and asked myself why I had done this, and then started in on it and rebuilt it, and it's been a boon companion since. As a matter of fact, I had it out today to go to the grocery store.
Outstanding. And
that is where our Canadian visitor came in. Back then, there was really no World Wide Web, much of anything, really. And the vast majority of communications were on mailing lists. I'm sure you remember those.
I do.
One of which was LRO, the Land Rover Owners Mailing List. I found out about it, subscribed to it. Thank you, Bill Calocha, wherever you are. That's when I met Dixon. The rest of the cast of characters that I've run across and run with over the years, so to speak. It was an education, to say the least.
Had you been a car person before that?
Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes, I always did my own work. I'm a firm believer in doing my own wrenching, always have been, all the way back to a 67 Chevy. But I had not been a, if you'll pardon the non-visual quotes, car person. It was more a case of being entirely too cheap to pay for a mechanic.
So you were familiar with then wrenching and doing your own work, and so that was not as much a daunting task when you purchased your Churchill.
No, actually, I've never had a problem with that. I've also been, along the years, a hobbyist machinist. I earned my living at one time as a process engineer, so well familiar with just about any process necessary and able to able to perform it to do whatever I needed to do. So I was kind of my own little one-man rebuild shop.
What work did the 109 need? How long did it take you to get it back on the road?
To answer the first part of that, yes.
Everything, yes.
I think that's about the best way to describe it. Yes. It was about an 8 or 9 month process. Basically, I looked at it, sat down, and did what I have long lectured Dixon to do and called plan the plan. Looked at it and said, okay, this needs done, that needs done, this needs done, that needs done, this and that and this and this and this. And then dove in and went for it. Chassis repairs, all new hydraulics, the worn out diesel engine that was in it quickly came out, and I located a petrol engine, rebuilt that and put that in. Basically went for it from there. That was, again, 8 or 9 months work along with paint and everything else. That ended up being Mr. Churchill Mark I, who, after a running in period, basically became my daily driver, going in and out of Boston every day for, I'm thinking, well over 5 years.
Including the winter time?
Winter, summer, you name it. One of the joys of a Land Rover is it will pass anything but a speed limit. And in short, if you pay attention to what you're doing and you drive reasonably, it will get you where you want to go. Combine that with the Kodiak heater, which my daughter used to call the turkey cooker, because it would literally cook you out of the cab, him being a pickup cab. There was not a better machine to be, doing the daily commute. I mean, yeah, the gas mileage could have been better, but then again, if you're pushing a brick through the air, don't expect miracles.
So 5 years of daily commuting in Churchill Mark I, excuse me, Mr. Churchill Mark I.
Yes.
Is there a Mark II or a Mark III?
Well, several things happened in the meantime. The first thing that happened was that my lower back went bad. Driving a 109 as a commuter vehicle was just not quite a great idea.
No.
And that's when I succumbed to what Dixon calls the dark side and bought my first Range Rover.
Yes, you went coil.
Yeah, I went coil.
Plushy.
See, there we go. Right there. You hear it? See, plushy, yeah. Plushy. There's Dixon.
Well, it's a Canadian twitch reaction.
He's like a sniper. He waits in the trees until just that right moment.
Altogether too true. But what happened is Mr. C became an honored guest. Several years went on after that, and basically his chassis gave out. And then it was a situation of, okay, fix, scrap, fix, scrap, fix, scrap. I didn't have the heart to scrap it. I got a hold of an ex-military chassis for Series 3 and completely rebuilt the truck, rebuilt engine, rebuilt transmission, Series 3 braking system, plush seats, the whole 9 yards. And
walnut dash.
Oh, please. That was the Mark I, not the Mark II. That was the original Mr. C. And you have never let me live that down.
Not even when we put the sign on the back that said that you had the flashlight holder was for the can of Pledge.
Allow me to explain what Dixon is nattering on about. When I was rebuilding Mr. C, I made the mistake of having a sense of humor. And what I had done was I had refitted the Series 2A dash. Instead of putting in the metal plates that had originally been there for the center console, for the center panel and everything else, I had handmade a set out of Brazilian walnut. Dixon's never ever let me live this down.
Nope. And
the sticker he is referring to, the back of the truck originally had a sticker on it that said, what was it? No hill too steep, no ditch too deep. To which he added a piece of paper one drunken Saturday night that said, no dash too tacky.
That's about right.
sounds like Dixon.
Yeah. I had done the whole thing as a gag. When we went from Mr. Churchill Mark I to Mark II, that all came out and got redone in stock. But then again, there are certain people who will never let me live it down.
He's looking at you, Dixon.
Well, which then, let's see, 5 years, Mr. Churchill. That means that the Range Rover Classic would be Lucy.
Oh, no. Actually, yes, it was. Commonly referred to, and John, you're more than welcome to edit this if you wish, Hellspawn.
Too.
I had bought a Saudi spec 84 Range Rover Classic that was badly rotted out and badly in need of repairs. And I had completely rebuilt it, and I was going to move to that as my daily driver. After the fourth time it tried to kill me, I decided that it had to leave.
So you were okay with that one being scrapped?
Oh, no, it didn't get scrapped. It got sold on. I mean, it was perfectly drivable, but as long as it went as far away from me as humanly possible.
You two did not get along.
Well, when it decided to, in close traffic in a city center, jam its accelerator pedal all the way to the floor, with me and my daughter in the car, I decided that this truck had to move on.
So, okay, so we have Mr. C, then we have Hellspawn, nicely known as Lucy.
Yes.
And then what's after that?
Another Range Rover who was known as Mr. Steed.
Seed, S-C-E-D?
Steed, S-T-E-E-D. The Avengers.
And that was a 19...
Oh, that was an 1988 Ranger? Yeah, 88 or 89. External door hinges. Why do I remember this trivia? Let me count the ways.
You're a Land Rover owner. That's what we do.
Yeah. There was that one, and that one moved on after being with me for a few years. And then bought another one, which got named Mrs. Peel, of course.
Excellent follow-on.
Yeah, and then a series of Discovery Ones after that. I have to confess that I am thoroughly fond of the breed. I got to be honest, I can't drive anything else. I've thought about, just going out and buying a Mercedes or something like that. And every time I do, I just get this feeling that I'm betraying a certain part of myself.
Have you put your finger on it? Have you figured it out?
It's more a case, to be perfectly honest, of endearing mechanical idiosyncrasies.
Even though one tried to kill you.
What's the fun of getting into a car if you know that you're going to make it where you're going completely uneventfully? There's no adventure in it.
you're a car person. When the journey is part of the fun, is part of the adventure. That I think that makes you a car person. It's not transportation. It's not an appliance. So does that mean you're not a fan of more modern vehicles? You don't like the fact that they put electronics and computers into Land Rovers?
Well, my daily driver right now is a Range Rover Classic. For myself, perhaps not, depending on the vehicle. I will confess the last Range Rover I bought for my daughter was a supercharged Sport. So, yes.
Yeah, but that was for somebody else.
That was for somebody else, yes. That was for somebody who was very special to me.
Right.
But yes, she's been thoroughly brainwashed as well.
Oh, good.
Yes. I know one of the things that you have is a series on, shall we say, kids of Range Rover. But to give you a short plot synopsis, the day I brought Mr. C home 30 years ago, my daughter was waiting in the front window of the house, and I did not escape that truck until I took her for a ride around the block. And she's been utterly captivated with them ever since.
That's cool.
Car person the next generation, and she's raising car person the third generation.
Doing it right.
Of course.
So tell us.
I have many thoughts, very few of which you probably want to hear.
He's got more vehicles to describe, though.
Oh, God.
Because it sounds like he went completely plushy, but nope, his heart's still with the leaf springs.
Well, not completely. I have owned an embarrassing number of Land Rovers. As Dixon reminds me frequently, I still do own leaf spring vehicles, one of which is a 1954 Series 186 that is actually a very well-traveled vehicle. You want to hear about it?
Yes, Al, this is a Land Rover podcast. We would love to hear about your Series truck. This is like, think of it as like a bolt counting Leafs versus a spring.
Like the angel or devil on each shoulder.
Yeah.
Where one is coil sprung, the other is leaf sprung, or it's schizophrenia, or he's bipolar, and one side is coil and the other side is leaf.
So what is the Series 1 called? Does it have a name?
Oh, of course it does. Of course it does. His name is Rio, and there's a reason for it. A dear friend of mine named Smokey Briggs runs the Monahans News newspaper in Monahans, Texas. Smokey at one time imported Land Rovers from Australia, and he had brought in a Series 1, 1954. It was actually a CKD vehicle that was shipped out from Solihull into Australia and assembled there. It basically went on the boat in a box.
Yeah, the knockdown kits.
Yeah, exactly. A very odd bird indeed. He brought it in, and unfortunately, the state of Texas insisted that because he could not prove it wasn't stolen, he could not register it. Fast forward several years, and I went down there for 10 days or so on essentially a busman's holiday to spend time on his ranch and work on his Land Rovers, spend time in the Southwest desert. I'm insane. What the heck? I'll go for it. Had a wonderful time. And one of the things that I was doing while I was down there was evaluating this vehicle and deciding if I wanted it. At which point we got it running. I fell in love. I got to be honest. I fell in love. So it ended up coming back up here. Essentially, the vehicle itself is a very odd duck because it's not only a 54 and a CKD, it's a survivor. It's not a rebuilt vehicle. It is essentially as original as it was when it was assembled down in Australia. The only major variance is that sometime in the 1990s, it got a new radiator and a 2.25 instead of the original 2-liter boat anchor. If you can tell, if you get a feeling I'm less than fond of 2-liter engines, you're right.
I think I might have picked that up. Yeah. So what work did you do on Rio then?
Very little, surprisingly. The pickup, first of all, it is an endearingly cute little vehicle. It's a Series 1 86 with a pickup cab. If you give a 6-year-old a crayon and a piece of paper and tell them to draw a picture of a truck, this is what you get. It's absolutely hilarious. It's 2 bricks. As far as what got done to it, surprisingly little. I overhauled the brake systems just because it had been sitting. A little bit of carburation work, a complete rewire, unfortunately. Australians and wiring, I don't know what it is, but I don't think they understand it. And to any Australians out there, I do apologize, but I really feel that way. The thing is that it really didn't need anything.
And what did you use it for? Did you take it off-roading? Was it just a daily driver?
I have to confess, in the summer, a lot of times it becomes my daily driver just because it's a great little truck.
That's great.
Yeah, I tend to rotate through the fleet here because basically
Because you can.
Yes.
I would too.
I mean, it makes about as much sense as a Centaur on roller skates, but what the heck? If you're going to have fun, have fun.
If you have them, you should use them.
Exactly.
Otherwise, what's the point?
That's a bit of my own personal philosophy, actually. If you're going to own an antique vehicle, unless you're one of these wretched people who buys them as investments so you can take it to Amelia Island and sell it for obscene amounts of money, enjoy it. Take it out and play with it. Have fun. That's really the name of the game. And that's honestly what I do with my toys.
Slightly off topic, but it's always worth mentioning. That's what Adam Bennett has done with Oxford. There's the ultimate embodiment of what you're talking about. has this vehicle that is prized and precious to many people around the world. But here it is. Go use it. You want to drive it? Sure. Go right ahead. Hop in, use it. It's not sitting in a museum. And if any Land Rover should be sitting in a museum, it's probably that one.
I will confess, when it comes to Land Rovers and museums, I've actually had the pleasure of meeting HUE 166.
Excellent.
Yes. I was over in the UK for Land Rover Day at Gaydon about a decade ago, and they trotted out HUE, and I got to go over and pat the fender and basically had a religious experience.
I understand. Yes.
And the sad part is, I'm sure you do, and that's really kind of exceptional.
I was also in Gaydon about 5 years ago, and UE was out on they have the whole everything out on display, and how can you not, just stand there and gaze? And
well, the thing is that at that time, they had, when I was there, they actually had it out, and for people to get close and personal with it.
Nice. That's a rare thing. I can understand why then you had more of a experience.
Yes, indeed. When it comes to Rio, though, as I've said, it's a terminally cute vehicle, and one of the things that's enjoyable about it is showing it to other people, and it leaves a smile on people's faces. One time that was rather notable is the local, I happened one year in a fit of madness to sign up for the local July 4th parade.
Yes, I'll take a British vehicle, the iconic British vehicle, to American Independence Day parade.
Exactly. You know what? If you can't see the humor in that, I give up. More to the point, though, I had signed up and gotten into the parade, and they put me in line with everything else and put me in right behind a troop of militiamen who were stopping every 500 yards to fire their musket. So picture, if you will, picture this in your mind's eye. A Land Rover tootling along, chasing a bunch of British musketmen down the street, them turning, stopping, the Land Rover stopping a few dozen yards behind, and them turning, aiming, and firing, at which point they turn around and take off again, and the Land Rover goes back into pursuit. This was absolutely precious. And the funniest thing was looking at the complete and utter confusion on the faces of the people in the crowd going, I don't get what's going on here, but you know what? Go for it.
And you're in the center of one of the centers of the revolution too. You're in Boston. You may have been on the same paths.
Not that particular road, but it has been on paths that, shall we say, its progenitors walk.
So, Alan, well, we've heard about your dark side with the plushies, and then we have the light side, the leaf sprung. Is there anything in between that might be coil and series?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, Dixon. Actually, yes. One of the vehicles in the stables here is a Defender 110 XMOD. Strangely enough, though, it's a left-hand drive XMOD vehicle with metric specifications. Near as I can tell, it may have been used in protectorates or somewhere else.
When you say overseas from Europe, or overseas as in Europe?
Overseas as in Europe, as opposed to a stock MOD vehicle.
Gotcha.
Because again, it was left-hand drive. Left-hand drive and metric instruments, which is not what you find on your typical XMOD. This one's getting some interesting work done on it. Another truck I had bought to be a daily driver for myself, 2.5 diesel, bought that before the Range Rover. Unfortunately, my shoulders and manual steering didn't get along too terribly well. And after 3 or 4 years, I had to give up driving it. Now it's going to be the subject of a conversion. About a year and a half ago, I went absolutely insane. You'll see there's a common thread here. I tend to go off the rails on a regular basis.
You brought it up. We didn't. You brought it up.
Hey, I'll be the first to admit it. I went off the rails and took an absolutely insane trip down and back to Tennessee and bought a 109 ambulance body, complete. It had been pulled off a Series 2A that was getting converted into a high cap pickup. What's going to happen is I'm basically going to do a mind meld and mount the 109 body on the 110 chassis and build myself a 110 ambulance.
You are mad.
Thank you. I take that as a compliment. There's a method to my madness, however.
What's the end state? Are you looking for a camper or?
Exactly.
Okay. Because it seems like every ambulance gets converted into a camper. It just seems like their natural state.
It's the perfect design for it. It's long enough to be able to stretch out comfortably. You've got room, you've got insulation, you've got a sun sheet.
A little easier to drive than a 101.
Yeah. So is a herd of elephants.
Just to pause us before you talk about the conversion, what is the XMOD 110? What year is that?
Okay, that is oh heavens, 1986.
And you said it had manual steering?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Was that, I didn't see, I have an 87 110 that has power steering. Was that a military
MOD.
thing? MOD. Okay.
The MOD were, shall we say, parsimonious. And they weren't going to put anything in that they didn't absolutely have to in these vehicles, which is why all XMOD 110s have Series 3 seats instead of something that might actually retain some sanity for your lower back.
So tell us about the conversion then. Any more about the conversion?
Oh, certainly. Right now, the box itself is partially stripped down. This poor thing, near as I can tell from what I was told by the original owner, the gentleman I bought it off, the ambulance box served last with the MOD with the Green Howards and served in the Falklands. Heaven only knows how it ended up in Tennessee, but you know what? I'm not going to ask. The 109 and 110 chassis are similar enough, and the lengths are nearly identical as far as the mountings and such. So it's not going to be an absolutely heinous conversion. The interior is going to get completely stripped out, get rewired, repaneled. Dixon can vouch for my current caravan, my current camper, which I hand built myself, which is a cozy little wood paneled room on wheels. And
very true.
That's what this thing is going to become. And what was it? Teddy Roosevelt said that any fool can be uncomfortable. Why would you want to?
Are you keeping the original windows in the ambulance? Those small, tiny windows, or are you getting bigger openings?
Yes, and kind of, sort of. I do love these definitive answers I'm giving.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
The windows in this thing are blacked out glass. They're heavy aluminum frames. They're very well built, but that blackout glass is just not on.
Yeah, you could weld from inside and, be on the outside and weld, and you could do it easily.
Don't laugh. That glass, I believe, and don't quote me on this, but I believe that glass was designed to minimize the amount of thermal radiation you'd take if a bomb went off. I mean, if a nuke went off over that thing. I swear it's that dark.
Because the aluminum, it will stand up to an explosion very well.
Yeah, not.
So let's reinforce the glass. That's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is the MOD we're talking about here.
I know.
So what I did, and what I'm doing actually, I can't say did, I'm not done yet, is completely disassemble the windows and replace the glass. I have a local place that every time I walk in, they look up and go, "Oh no, not you again," because I keep bringing them in strange, weird, and wonderful things to work on and do for me. And they, I think they take it as a challenge, and I'm not complaining because they're very good at what they do. But they were able to give me the proper spec, double paned safety glass, which I would not have if I couldn't have gotten that, I wouldn't have done anything with the windows.
Any thoughts to maybe raising the roof or having as a pop-up?
That thought has crossed my mind more than once. I will say that. However, I'm not the tallest individual on the face of the planet. I'm probably 5'10", 5'11". I don't have a problem with a snug, comfortable den that I can't stand up in. One of the things, to tell you what kind of an obsessive compulsive engineering type I am, one of the things I did was laid out on the floor in my workshop the basic in tape layout lines of the way I wanted to lay this thing out internally. And then set a broom at horizontal to give me the height I was working with. And I looked at it and went, okay, my sink is going to be there. My stove is going to be there. That's going to be there. That's going to be there. Okay. Let's perform the routine tasks that we would normally perform in this thing and figure out how it's going to work. And I realized one thing. All I needed to do was bring along a folding stool. Have an aisle in the middle, put a folding stool, cooking sitting down, not a problem. Washing dishes sitting down, not a problem. Entirely comfortable. And this way I can keep the exterior of this thing completely and utterly original. Because it's going to be a chameleon. It's going to be completely and utterly perfectly military on the outside. I have all of the photographs of the outside to restore it to the way it looked. On the inside, it is basically going to be IKEA hell.
Are you going to have a pass through from the from the front passenger compartment?
Oh yes, that wall is coming out.
And the rear doors are going to be the same with the fold down step ladder?
Yes. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and if anybody out there has a spare set of doors for an ambulance, let me know.
We need to have you talk to Harold. You might.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this ambulance body, somewhere in its career, had a short, sharp argument with a deuce and a half. The back doors on this thing are best described as, I think, bananas. They're nothing I can't rebuild, but it's kind of, oh dear.
It would be better to have new ones and replace them.
Yeah, it would be better to have anything better than what's there.
So, Alan, we've heard about some of your vehicles. Yes, I know there are more, but we'll leave those quiet for the time being. Where have you taken these things and what have you done with them?
Oh, boy. Oh, you just had to go there, didn't you? You just had to go there.
I haven't finished.
Please do continue then.
No. I have more things to go and raise. Let's go with events right now.
The term everywhere comes to mind. I'm sure you've heard the old folk song, I've been everywhere. There are days where I look back on where I've been with my trucks, and it really does feel that way. Now, when it comes to car shows, I will admit I go to the local car shows. My son-in-law is a Mustang fanatic, and I'll wind up one of my toys and I'll go up to the Mustang show and I'll park in the other part just for the sheer enjoyment and just to let people see them and enjoy my trucks for what they are. As far as traveling, though, like I said, everywhere.
Do you go to MAR? Do you go to the Great American Rover Rally? Have you been to Sully Hall Societies out in the West?
Well, actually, never out to the far West. I went to the Midi once in my 58 Series 2. That was a very long drive.
I can imagine.
That was a very, very long drive.
What is that like? How many hours consecutively can you drive before you have to take a break?
In that 58, I think I did 14 hours. With the 109, I have consistently gone from here in Chelmsford, Mass, to Silver Lake Provincial Park for the OVLR birthday party. And I've done that many, many times, and that's usually about 11 and a half hours.
You did the birthday party one year in Jessica, which was the 58 series too. That was the year of the monsoon, if I recall.
Was it? Okay, I don't remember doing it in the 58, but I won't disagree with you. Your memory is filling in gaps in mine.
Oh, you had a very descriptive, I think it was in the newsletter, account of your drive back with the pouring down rain and just the sheets of rain that were blocking your view and everything else.
Oh yes, I do remember that.
The water pouring in from the seal above the windscreen, things like that.
Above the windscreen, yay!
Oh yeah, yeah.
As if the scuttle vents aren't enough.
Yes, I remember that altogether too well. That's when you just stop, put your bathing suit on, and accept the fact that you are not going to be dry until you get home. But I've been to the Mar. I've been to Canada many, many times. One of my other regular stops is the Metal Dash out in Petersham, Massachusetts.
Can you tell us more about that? We've no one that I'm aware of has actually been to the Metal Dash weekend, or at least have talked about it on the podcast. To kind of hear a little more about it.
The Metal Dash is a very, very laid back, very mellow operation. Don Fly, who is a thorough and utter gentleman all the way down to the tips of the toes, does this every year on his farm, and it's not terribly organized. You know, it's not one of these what I mean by that, and I do apologize for saying it the way I did. What I mean by that is it's not one of these horribly regimented things where now we're doing this and now we're doing that and now we're doing this. It is more a bunch of rover heads getting together in a field and enjoying each other's company and enjoying a bonfire and relaxing and doing what we do best, which is enjoying each other's company.
And must you have a Metal Dash to get into the event, or is it? Do they allow the? I'll use a Dixon term: plushies with plastic dashes.
The origin of the name of the Metal Dash is Don Fly is a Series 1 fanatic. He has a Series 1 86 that has been restored to within a millimeter of its life. It's a lovely vehicle. But what he wanted to start originally was a Series 1 only weekend, hence calling it the Metal Dash. Unfortunately, he found out there wasn't enough of a population to make this viable. You know, I think he had 3 vehicles show up the first year, and that really didn't go all that well. After that, he opened it up, and it was a case of, sure, you know, drive what you brung. I mean, I've seen, you know, Discoveries, Range Rovers, you name it, 110s. Anyone is welcome. It is more an event that caters to the tiger stripe of the soul rather than the wheels that got it there.
Very nice. That's a good way to state that.
Yeah, it's such fun. Bunch of guys standing around, trading parts and trading lies and drinking coffee and other such items, and generally having a wonderful time without, shall we say, getting too worried about who's doing what and who's got what that's plusher than what and whose car is over restored and all that other nonsense. It's a lot of fun. Should you ever make it out this way, I will make you a standing offer. I will lend you a truck to go out to it if you're out this way come Columbus Day.
It's very kind of you. Very kind of you. I will consider that. I would want to drive one of mine just because that would be the fun, because it's, again, partly it's the journey getting there, right? I did take my 110 to the Maine Winter Romp.
Oh, Mr. Churchill has been to the Maine Winter Romp.
No, he hasn't.
Weren't you there in Churchill? What were you there in?
No, I was there. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, I was up there in a Range Rover Classic. I went up there with Mark Talbot.
I thought you were there with Mr. Churchill because you went up, I thought, with Amanda.
Yeah, she was along, but but we didn't have a truck.
Okay, my error.
Much as I love the concept of Rover events, Not in the middle of winter.
Yes, I understand.
No.
Yeah,
Too cold. No, I'm not frostbite. I don't like getting frostbites.
You would like to arrive in one piece and arrive at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, more or less.
Let's see, John, you asked about where one could go and not only just see our esteemed guest, but he's actually quite a literary person. I'm looking here at an index of articles, and Alan has passed 70 articles. He's put in the OVLR newsletter on everything from maintenance tips to ownership, gardening with Mr. Churchill. Mr. Churchill doesn't like the attention Lucy's getting. Maintenance, rebuilding in 88, a series of articles, and then some on humor. He actually has a couple of songs, the Repair Lament and the Rover's Lament, if you go back into the 1960s. So he's actually quite well written.
And Al, you wondered why I had you invite you on the podcast. You have this whole history of assisting Land Rovers in the community going back into the OVLR newsletter.
Well, one of the things I was always taught, John, was that if you are going to do something and you learn something, share it with other people. If you learned how to do something, don't tuck it aside, don't hide it, do not be jealous of your skills. Share them with other people. And that's one of the reasons that I wrote all of that for the OVLR newsletter, not to mention the fact that I had a certain nagging editor whose name shall go unmentioned, rather like Voldemort.
Dixon.
But more seriously, it's a situation of if I'm going to do something useful, why shouldn't I share how to do it with others? For example, when I bought my daughter's Range Rover Sport, the supercharged one, to be blunt, this thing was a basket case. The entire front end was shot. The brakes were shot. It had shifting issues. It was a very unhappy puppy. I had 19 days to get this thing roadable, registered, and licensed because it was going to be a Christmas present. Yes, I'm insane. You notice this keeps coming up, and I dove into it and replaced the front hubs and did all the brakes and got into the transmission and dealt with the shifting issues and cleaned it up and essentially cleaned up the maintenance that the previous owner hadn't done to it. Previous owner who he was a wonderful guy, but he drove it into the ground. And in that, I learned a lot about, the new generation, if you'll pardon the expression, and, how to replace hubs and how to do this and how to do that. And all of that has ended up in between the folded covers of the OVLR newsletter. And I haven't just written for OVLR. I've actually written for Classic Land Rover, and I wrote for Land Rover World a few times. So I've had, if you'll pardon the expression, a broader audience than just OVLR. But that's where I keep coming back to, because it's not about the money; it's about the information.
Can folks still access that information? Maybe it's a better question for Dixon. How are you able to get
all
into that?
Of the OVLR newsletters? The last year is not up there, but the other 430 of them are all up on the OVLR website and available for download. And with Alan, he actually, in terms of going and explaining things, since I have the index here and he wouldn't necessarily remember, his first article was a handy Rover hint recovering the door handles, which he wrote in August of 1995. So pretty early on in the ownership of Churchill.
And where does one find the articles? I assume that's ovlr.org.
.org. We'll probably have to edit this out. I can send you the link and you can put it on to the Center Steer podcast website.
So you can access the articles, ovlr.org, and we'll put a link directly to them in the show notes.
And another place you can find them or at least most of them, I desperately need to catch up with it, is richer-engineering.com, my website. I keep a website. It's a relic of the 1990s, but information doesn't go stale. It serves as a repository for my scribblings, antics, and so on and so forth.
Richard,
RICHER -engineering.com.
I think it's down.
Yeah, it's busted.
Okay, yeah, the IP address could not be found. So it's okay.
It's normally up. It's on the same server as OVLR, but our mutual friend Ben is having some issues with that server and needs to smack it over the head.
Is that the one that's sitting in a living room?
I'm not sure if Richer Engineering is in the dining room or in the cloud somewhere. Okay. It's actually the FAQ, OVLR, Richer Engineering, Bill Maloney's Land Rover photographs, and so on. Which page you're on determines where you're actually going to be. It's interlinked and so on. Now, there's some of it's on a server in Chicago. There's another piece in Australia. Then there's a piece in Canada. But a lot of Alan's articles are also in the Land Rover FAQ. So depending what you're looking for, whether it's painting a vehicle or doing something about wiring, or on your C40 generator, if you, for example, go into electrics in the FAQ for the series vehicle, you'll find actually quite a few of his articles there.
And that is lrfaq.org, that Dixon was referring to.
Yes. My relationship with the Prince of Darkness is a complex one.
I'm not surprised.
I have fought him to a standstill many times.
November 1998, the Prince of Darkness defended an article by Mr. Richer on ownership. Interesting.
See, now we have receipts. So, Al, you've written all of these articles, 70 some articles in OVLR and apparently more elsewhere. But there's a whole group of people that are buying Land Rovers now that are new to the brand. Do you have an idea in your head on maybe an article, or even maybe it's not an article, maybe it's just a comment about trying to engage them in old Land Rover history? You have thoughts on how to include those folks, or what to tell them about it, about the history?
Actually, yes. Funny you should mention that. The situation there is that while a lot of the folks coming in are buying what used to euphemistically be called Chelsea tractors, there are going to be a significant percentage who are looking at it and going, Land Rover. I remember my granddad talking about TV shows on TV that had Land Rovers in them. And, Clarence the Cross-Eyed Lion and all of that.
Or even modern Top Gear.
Or, modern Top Gear, indeed. And there are folks who, as I said, will not be interested in the history, sad to say, but there are those that will be. And my own thought on the situation is, if you're willing to come up to me, you being a generic term, and yes, I was waving air quotes in the air again, sorry. If you come to a car show and you come up and go, what is it? Or it's got a Land Rover badge, but they didn't have any of those at the dealership when I bought my Defender. I will talk your ear off, and I will be more than happy to welcome you to, if you'll pardon the expression, the brotherhood. Because while you may be driving what you're driving, that doesn't negate in the slightest the fact that you looked at it and went, okay, I want one of these. And you're just as crazy as I was back lying in that hospital bed back in 1994 going, I got to have one of these, when I'd never even driven one. If I have anything to say to the Land Rover owners now, and as I think you phrased it earlier, the old guard and the modern plushie owners and so on, talk to each other, enjoy each other's company, enjoy what you're driving, and enjoy it for what it is. to be perfectly honest, it's all down to a case of willingness. It's down to a case of, are you willing to talk to me? Am I willing to talk to you? And if the answer to that isn't yes, it should be. Bottom line.
What one thing would you tell a modern Land Rover owner about the experience of owning an old Land Rover that they may not be immediately evident?
You're going to laugh, but I think the one word I would use for owning an old Land Rover, having done so for as many years that I don't even want to think about, is soul. There is not one of these old trucks that doesn't have one. It's not something that you normally find in your average run-of-the-mill Hyundai or Mazda or anything else. Anytime you approach a piece of machinery that has existed for 60 years and is probably 10 times past its design lifetime, it's going to have developed its own personality. And you doggone well best do yourself a favor and recognize that, because otherwise it is going to make you extremely unhappy. One of the things that having a presence on the web and having numerous articles brings out is people asking questions. And Dixon, being the webmaster at OVLR, oftentimes got questions and has gotten questions over the years, and with great glee heaved them over the border to me down here in Massachusetts. They've ranged from, okay, I need to replace the distributor drive gear in my 2.25. Do I want the old or new style? At which point the answer is whatever you got, run what you brung, to really fascinating questions about, well, we have Grandpa's Land Rover and we don't know what to do with it. It hasn't been driven in a few years. How should we handle it? Things like that, that particular type of thing and that type of question. And that wasn't one that came through you, Dixon. So pardon me if I segued off into the distance.
No, you just told me you're holding back an article.
Yeah, well, questions like that sometimes are heartbreaking. The joy of being able to give people information that they don't have, to let them either enjoy the vehicle themselves or to bring closure to it, is a wonderful thing. That, however, was a very much a minority question. The vast majority of them were, okay, the Prince of Darkness has ganged up on me. I got smoke coming out of my dash. What do I do now? Answer, get out of the car.
Deploy the fire extinguisher.
Deploy the fire extinguisher, exactly. Standard item in any English vehicle.
Have two, just in case.
No lie. But it's more a situation of, perhaps this is a bit more philosophical than I intended, but while the vehicles themselves are wonderful and beautiful things, and I cannot conceive of driving anything else, the best part of working on them and owning them and showing them is the people that I have had the infinite pleasure of meeting over the years. Dixon and all of the lunatics up in Canada. The folks at the MAR are sitting there going, boy, you talk funny. And yeah, thanks.
So do they.
No. Yeah, not a word. Folks who've written to me over the years and asked questions. What do I do? How do I deal with this? How do I fix this? Please help me. And being able to help them. It's been a wonderful journey. And it's been a very human journey. And I think that's the best part of it. It's the humanity. Without that, they're just soulless machines.
Al, this has been wonderful. I appreciate taking the time to talk to us. We've been trying to organize this for a while. Dixon has been on me to get you on the program, and glad it finally happened. Been a wonderful conversation, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you very much, John, and I really enjoyed being here. Again, thank you, Dixon, for for prodding me into doing this. It's sincerely appreciated. And I do hope to chat with you all again soon.
And we hope you enjoyed show number 102 for September 2021. Thanks to Dixon for joining us today on the program. Thanks, Dixon. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And hopefully next month we'll have Harold and Morgan will come back to the program. And hopefully maybe next month you can cross the border as we're on border watch.
I do hope so. It's been a long time.
And thanks to Al Richer for being our guest this month. I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did. And also thanks to the One True Packs for his continuing production support. And as I'm going to start doing every month in honor of Land Rover's 75th anniversary, you're invited to bring your Land Rover, specifically Defender and Series owners, to the Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix in July of 2023. You now have 21 months to prepare.
The countdown has started.
We're hoping the border opens by then too. We'll have to add that to Border Watch. Visit our website, yes, centersteer.com, to listen to previous shows and for show notes, which have links to the stories discussed in today's podcast. If you're listening to the podcast on our website, you can download a podcast app and subscribe so you have the show delivered to you automatically. We post a new podcast at the end of every month, and you can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, email, and voicemail. You can directly support the show at patreon.com/centersteer, center in the British spelling. You can buy a t-shirt, sticker, or buy us a tea. Click on store on the menu of our webpage for the details there. And don't forget, we are also doing our Retro 80 Center Steer 100th special t-shirt and stickers. They're available out there, and we're still keeping the pre-order open until mid-October for the t-shirt. So if you want one, now's the time. Thank you for listening for the last 102 episodes. We hope to hear from you and what you're up to in your Land Rover. Click on voicemail on the website and let us know. The next voicemail will receive a Center Steer t-shirt. We haven't had a voicemail in a long time. Until next time, I ask you to share the show with one other Land Rover enthusiast.
You may now resume your important things.
Hey, I'll take that out. I'm not going to leave that in.
Oh, it's fine. Remember, I'm half Yank. You may now resume your important things, huh?
Pat Defender and basically had a religious experience.